Yes, that's fine. So I try to make this full screen. Yeah, does that work, Dennis? Fine.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can see.
Okay, great. So as Dennis said, I'm Nicole from Studio Superdot. We are an information design studio in Basel. So that means we are specialized in visualizing complex data and content. And we try to do that in a correct way, but also in a very like engaging and in a very designy way. So people also like to look at it. This is our team. So this is me. On the right upper side, it's Diane, Sarah, and Aaron. At the moment, we are 4 in the team. This is all of us teaching. So we made some photos while we were teaching. We teach at different schools, like art and design schools. So yeah, now it works. Oops, I was too fast. The presentation is slow. So I want to start my story with an event that took part like last September. We were invited by Pro Helvetia to be part of Vienna Design Week. Switzerland was the guest country, and we were invited to show one work specially, which I will show you afterwards. Here you can see Diane with the poster that we specially designed for this exhibition. So the poster is actually about the impact of visualization and also about how we work and some projects that are linked on the poster. Next slide is coming, hopefully. Yeah, no, oops. Okay. So with this poster, I quickly tell you how we work. So we cluster our work into 3 main fields. So the first one you can see here, we said we do information architecture. That means we structure the data and the information. We make the UX design. That's like the first step, because usually the data and information we get is not really ready to design. So we consult how to do this, how to select the data, how to select the content, and what is maybe missing. Then the next step is, oh, this was too quick. Yeah. Here you can see we do information visualization. So we choose the kind of diagram, we choose how we will design the data, in what structure. And the last thing is like we do, oh my God, we do information aesthetics. So that means to really design the whole project to, yeah, and to make it enjoyable, let's say. So, but this lecture is about the impact. So on this poster, we also sorry for the, it's reacting quite slowly. On this poster, we also tried to define what impact the visualizations that we do can have. So the first one is like to say visualization can visually convey, can make content transparent. So what we did, for example, is for the National Science Foundation in Switzerland, we designed a platform where they can share their data about all the grants and who got the grants, how much which university gets, and so on. So to make that transparent to a bigger audience. And that was done with like a real-time kind of diagram and dashboard. I'm not going deeper into this project. I'm showing one project that we are also showing in Vienna more in detail. Yeah, now it works. So the second thing is that the visualization can do, or what impact it can have, we can inspire visual engagement. So that means we build tools for people to actually participate or to communicate with data and content. For example, with the Swiss Tropical Health Institute, we designed forms for 3 African countries so that the staff in these 3 countries can take better decisions. Yeah, and the third one is sustainable visual enabling. And in this kind of cluster, we find also the project I want to show you more in detail. So this project was a lab project. We started actually in 2013 already, when we just started quite freshly with our company. There was a competition by Arty, the German architecture magazine, about the like imbalance in society, let's say. So we had to find data, and we had to find the topic to for this competition. And what we found was actually this magazine and table you can see here. It's actually the from UBS, prices and earnings. It's I think they collect this data every 5 years from 72 cities, I believe. So we had a sociologist in the team, and he came with this brochure and said, okay, we could visualize these numbers from the UBS because they have so many cities and it's interesting to compare them. And the thing was that we thought, it's about imbalance in the world, and we would use like UBS data. Is that like a good thing to do, or shouldn't we like look for other data? But in the end, we decided that, of course, the quality of the data has to be good, but on the other hand, we wanted to do an experiment, what you can do with this kind of data. And as you can see here, how UBS presented the data at that time was just like a text and some pages with a lot of numbers, like in a table, but not in a visualized way. So we thought, okay, it would be really interesting to find patterns and to think about how to visualize this data. What we did is we received all the Excel files from UBS. We downloaded them, we analyzed them, and how we do that is actually by Excel, very simply, and also with Tableau, the software. Maybe you are familiar with it. And like this, we try to find patterns. We were thinking how to select the cities, or that's it. So the first time we did that was in 2013 with this competition for Arc Plus. There it was the idea to hand in some poster designs. Actually, from one category, we won this competition, so that was really cool in the beginning of our career of the company, and it was really motivating to work in this field and to go on with this idea, because at that time there were not so many companies or design companies in that field. Exactly. And here is this is from last year, when we finally when we had this idea from the poster to make this web app. And we had this idea for a long time, but due to Corona, we finally had time to also do it. We have a developer in our team. You have seen him on the first page. It's Aaron. So we can also develop this kind of things internally. Yeah, so oops, again. Okay. So this image shows how we developed like a new diagram type. We usually don't work with standards or with standard tools that make like bar charts or pie charts or whatever. We are really specialized to do our own charts. So here we show how we develop this chart type for this data. So in German, you say Einkommensschere, which means, did I actually say that the UBS data is about salaries? The data that we were choosing. It's about salaries in 72 cities in the world. Yeah, maybe I forgot to say that. So the idea was to visualize this term of Einkommensschere you have in German. I think in English it does not really make sense, but you could translate it into income scissor. So with our diagram, we try to visualize this income scissor, or this idea of this income scissor. So here you can see how we step by step come from a bar chart. So each of these 5 colors is an income group. We can see in detail afterwards which income groups these are. So you could like visualize it in a just as a bar chart. So this would be one city with these 5 income groups. Maybe a little bit more interesting than the bar chart is this like so-called lollipop chart. If you stack the lollipop chart on top of each other, you have a, we call it, we found the we defined the name ourselves. We call it Tango chart. And finally, we call this one the income the scissors chart, because you can see who is over the average and who is under the average. So, but maybe like this is easier to see. So this is actually a screen of the web app that we did. So here you have a scale that shows the income in thousands of dollars. So you have the city of Geneva, you have the 5 job groups. And the first one is like a head of a department. The second one, the green one, is a primary school teacher. The blue one is a cook. Like the red one, an auto mechanic or another like similar job that is very practical. And the Verkäuferin is actually a shop assistant. So you can see that the income scissor in Geneva starts on a very high level, so between $4,000 and $5,000. And also you can see that it's quite wide open, but now we don't have a comparison yet. And you can see that 2 of the job groups are above average and 2 are lower. So what we did for Vienna is that on the other side of this poster with the 3 impact, we had this overview of, I think for the poster we selected around 30 cities. And exactly. And what we did is we took the latest data. So for the competition in 2013, we used other data than we used now. So we used the latest data. And let me check one thing, the poster. Yeah, so what we compare is the data from 2018 with the data from 88, so 20 years apart. On the poster, which usually have just 1 year, you have the scale on the right side again, You can see it here. And you can actually compare quite nicely that, for example, the lower ones are on a higher level, and the upper ones here in the poster are on a lower level. So it's actually the cities are sorted by the lowest income. And what you can see, the higher it gets, you have countries where the scissor is really open, like Montreal, where the highest is really much higher than all the others. And you have London, where the scissor starts quite high, but it's quite narrow. I mean, of course, it's just these 5 job groups. And the black dots you can see, it's the GDP. And so we have put some highlights that, for example, the scissor increased most in Sao Paulo in the 20 years. And like in Hong Kong, a cook earns more than a head of a department. So you can really nicely see patterns and compare these different cities in a good way. And this dotted line just shows the average of all the cities and all the job groups. So here you see Diane showing our web app in Vienna and explain it to some visitors. Here you see that our web app also works for mobile, which is also always very important for us. So what I do is now, oops, I can show you the app like live. Yeah, so that works. So for the app, we selected 40 cities out of the 72 because we had to, we wanted to have the comparison of 88 and 2018. So we not all the cities had like all these job groups, or not all the years had all these job groups, and not all the, yeah, actually that's the thing, yeah. Okay. Oops, I go back again. So here you can actually see the job groups again. So it's like, it's kind of a mix of a storytelling database, but also a tool you can find your own, you can find your own patterns. Here's the Geneva example again. Yeah, I have to move this a bit so I can see everything. So, and it says again that the black dot is the GDP. So you can, after that, you can flip through all the different cities. And you can always press the buttons, these dots, to see which job group it was and how much they earn. And so it has this storytelling aspect in between, because it says in 2018, the income scissor in Luxembourg was the widest. And in Lagos, in Africa, it was in Nigeria, it was the most narrow. And like this, you can select from the 40 cities the two that you want to compare yourself and play with it. And here we talk about the difference in from 88 to 2018. So Sao Paulo, as I mentioned before, was growing most. And Tokyo actually was one of the few where the income scissor was getting closer. So actually you can see really well in general that you have countries that are really like have a narrow scissor but are high, and you have others that have a very wide scissor and yeah, that are high as well. So for example, New York is really open, but also high. Let's find another one.
Nicole, we have 2 questions in the chat. Do you want to answer them right away?
Answer. Yeah, of course, I can do that.
So the first one is by Boris. Boris, do you want to unmute and ask it? Or should I just read it for you?
Yeah, sure, I can ask it. Thanks for the presentation, Nicole. It's a really cool chart. I was just wondering if given the differences in absolute salaries between the wealthier and less wealthy cities, does it make sense to maybe show some of these charts in relative terms, percentages? Thank you.
What do you mean by, okay, thanks for your question. What do you mean by relative terms? I mean, these numbers are all absolute. I think it's the gross salary. So before you take the taxes and everything. And of course it's not, yeah, you can say it's just the salaries, and of course living costs not the same in each of the cities, of course, but I think it gives, yeah, it shows a bit like where everyone is positioned. And yeah, you can always question the UBS numbers, but we wanted to, yeah, just start a discussion, you know, for people to look in detail and also ask questions. But I don't know if this is an answer to your question.
Sorry, yeah, maybe I didn't phrase it very well. So I sort of meant for Lagos, the scissors were very narrow, but that's because, but maybe in percentage terms, the difference between the top and the bottom is actually quite large.
Yeah, because it's so low as well. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's right. We didn't calculate that. So here's the lowest is 56 and the highest is 611. So that's, yeah, quite a difference of like, yeah. What is that? 100%. Yeah, and here it's maybe, yeah, it's 5 times bigger, and here is like 10 times bigger. That's right. Yeah, no, we did not really compare that. That's true.
Maybe I can add, Nico. We compared it. We did that with Aaron.
Okay, so
percentage, we looked at it, but we decided that the reason why we stayed with the dollars is you can relate to dollars because of your own salary in a better way than in percentages. That's why for the first draft, for this kind of first app, we decided to stay something where this reference of how many dollars is in the end is kind of stronger. And that's why we didn't change, because we thought that you could also add this add-on of percentage that kind of, you want to see it as percentage or you want to see it in dollars. So we said, okay, let's first, in sake of storytelling, let's stay with the dollars. Sorry, Nicole.
Yeah, no, thank you for the addition. So, yeah, that's Diane from our team. He's more responsible for actually the data science part or the data analysis, and I'm more in the visual team. So I'm the head of the visualizations.
Then there was a quick question by Javad. I hope I pronounced it correctly. I'm sorry if not. And that is just whether these plots were generated by R or maybe what kind of tool you use.
Yeah, that's also a good question. So we work with React, and the charts were done with 3D. No, we don't work with R. Okay, yeah, here I just wanted to show you that this tool, this web app is also working on mobile phones or on iPads, and you can actually also just swipe the countries up and down. But as I'm here at my desktop, I cannot show this. Yeah, that's about the app. Yeah, so what I can say that there's this exhibition in Vienna at the Design Week was a really good like user test, and we could really see well if the visualizations we did work well and if the topic is interesting for an audience. And I must say that from the topic, because everyone can relate to it, everyone has a salary more or less, can compare themselves and position themselves. And for example, in Vienna, they checked, okay, which salary is where I am at, and they said, okay, which city is that? And we had a lot of discussion, and people started to discuss under each other. So we had a really nice interaction with the audience. So that was really working well, and we are generally really interested in this kind of social social impact topic. And even though it's UBS data, we had a good discussion. Actually, if you want to have a deeper look into this poster, we have QR codes where you can find all the projects. You can find it on the home screen of our website, and you can also scan this QR code if you want, and you will get to the poster. What else can I say? Okay, it flipped the page for me. So at the moment, we are actually working on a book about aesthetic data visualization. So how to do it, how to build new diagram types. So you can rather, if you're interested in that, you can rather like sign in for our newsletter on our website, or which is Superdot.studio. And we have another website that for the book. So you can also scan this QR code and sign up there. So I think that's it from my side. So I'm open for more questions if there are any.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much for this interesting insight. We have already one question by Fred. Fred, do you want to ask it yourself, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Hello. Wait a second. Hello, Nicole. Thanks a lot for your insightful talk. I'm doing during my work, I also do plots from time to time, and as I wrote, I'm sometimes confronted with a bit more artsy kind of plot, and sometimes a bit more one that is a bit more scientific. And I'd be interested to know how you address this problem and what you take into account to design a plot.
You mean by that that like standard plots are maybe more easy to read, or what do you mean by scientific or arty? What is scientific for you and what is arty for you? Good
question. So by arty, I mean, if you take a book for data visualization, you rarely find yourself in front of basic R plots. You often find plots that are very colorful and where you can dive into and try to there is a little bit of room for imagination sometimes, and that is, I think that is very opposed to all the plots. I mean, not all the plots, but the majority of the plots that you find in the scientific literature. And is it something you are also confronted to?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, how can I say? Of course, it's really important that you can read the visualizations and maybe that they are not too arty, so they're still work, and probably you need a bit more time to understand them. I think the plot that we did for this out of balance project that I showed is quite simple, but still quite easy to get. So I don't know if you would already call this arty. So this is how we work. We try to make understandable plots, but also in a way that people are interested to look at it, because if you design whatever data with like standard plots like bar charts or pie charts, I think you don't get the attention of people to really go into the data. So we try to find a good balance of making it attractive to look at, but also, yeah, understandable, let's say.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any more questions? Feel free to use the raise hand function or write in the chat, whichever you prefer. So right now, doesn't look like there is another question. I had one, which is, are there certain things that you really advise against? For example, I know that there are people out there who have strong feelings about not using pie charts. How do you have things where you think, yeah, some visualizations are clearly not useful or should be avoided?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, I think there is reasons to use these standard charts, to use pie charts and bar charts, but they have their limits with you can put maybe 2 or mostly you can put 2 like data variables or dimensions, we call it, in it, so you cannot compare so many data dimensions with it. So that's why I would encourage to do other let's say plots or diagrams. But what is important to say that we don't do is, we always say we don't do decoration. Some people call it chart chunk, where you just make like a pie chart or bar chart, and then you make some illustrations around it or something. So we really try to be clear with our aesthetic and with not to decorate. We always say we don't decorate. That's really important. So don't make chart junk. But I would really encourage to try new things, and then if you try new diagram types, you can compare them and test them and see if they work or not. Yeah, if it's too arty, then sometimes the data is not readable anymore, but that's not our approach. So we try to be clear and readable. That's a balance all the time, yeah.
Thank you. We have another question by Johannes in the chat, and he asks, in general, how do you decide between 2 or more possible visualizations of the same data? Can you describe a bit the process, or what questions you think about for this?
How we decide between 2 possibilities? Yeah, I think it has to, I mean, there are always like many possibilities. We try to show this in the book we are planning. So you can do, with all the data, you can do a lot. But I would say the form also follows, often the form follows the content a bit. So it depends, let's say, if it's about stars, the data, let's say, maybe you make a shape that is connected to that. Or for example, I have an example that we did like a yearly review poster for the School of Economics of the FHNW, like a report about their institute and the department. And it was actually for Christmas. So we had many diagrams, and we just structured them like in a shape from a star, so of a star. So yeah, so it depends a bit the topic. And of course you decide, is it like well readable to could the audience understand it or not? And yeah, I think that's the most important.
Great. I skipped over one question by Sanatan, which is, are there any alternatives to complex network maps?
Yeah, well, I did not try that or investigate that myself, but I would encourage him to take a pen and a paper and and try it. So that's also how we start. We didn't show it in this presentation, but usually we don't start with with the software immediately, be it Illustrator or programming or whatever, but we sit down with a pen and paper and we sketch. So yeah, if you want to experiment with networks, then I would encourage to just make some sketches.
So I already have some of these methods where I use force-directed methods to create complex networks, and we use healthcare data to visualize these things. But when the nodes go beyond 2000, 3000, it's really difficult to make something out of that complex network. So if you can, I know you just mentioned that it's not an area that you are focused on, but any insight would be great.
Yeah, maybe Diane can add to that.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So our favorite topic, networks. Yeah, they are super powerful, right? But at some point you don't see anything. Kind of, you see maybe through the density of the dots, there's something's happening, and then you have to dive in. But in general, the reason why you don't see networks in our portfolio is, first, okay, we didn't have the right project to do that. But the second is that I think there is a lot of potential to do a PhD on the topic on how to simplify and make networks readable and user-friendly, because that's the point. Actually, what you say is how can you really make them kind of for people with short time, and kind of not, because experts, they always can deal with networks and network graphs. But I would agree, it's a nice challenge. And I couldn't answer if there is a good solution or alternative or visualization type. I think Dylan is also totally in the topic, right? So I don't know.
Different type of networks. Yeah, I would think that network graphs are often a little impenetrable to me, and I think that clustering is a very powerful tool there. So if you can make the physical location of each point meaningful, not just arbitrary, and then include some clustering approach to show how these points group within the network, I think that can be more informative.
Yeah, I mean, I tried that, but it's very difficult to do it live on the web. So far I can just I have created a method where you can connect, say, suppose disease to gene or gene to gene, and then like in a node way, and you can then create your network with different colors and whatnot and directionality. But it's just force directed. If I try to implement anything else, which is more than 10,000 or 20,000, because you're talking about 20,000 genes, 50,000 diseases, and so on. So usually what user end up doing is they crash the system. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Do you work then with kind of zooming and kind of this aggregation that you say at some certain zoom level, you just have the aggregated number and then you go in and it kind of splits?
That's something that definitely can be explored. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like an overview first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's also Teresa shared a link to a PhD thesis on visualizing graph networks in the chat. So if you're interested, check that out. There's another question by Zina, and she asks, since your team members have various backgrounds, how do you organize, manage a project?
Yeah, so we have very specific focuses, like all of us, but we also have like a really overlapping like interest and yeah, how do you say, skills. So Diane is like more our project manager. He's more into data analysis. He has a business informatics background, and we met at the visual communication master program in Basel. I have a visual communication background, and I was always interested in data visualization. So that's how we came together and founded this company. So yeah, and Sarah is more, she's also an illustrator, and she knows very well how to animate stuff. And Aaron, who is by training an artist, and also he has an MA in visual communication. He has that background, and he taught himself to program, to code, let's say. So each of us has a very specific focus, but we have a lot of in common. So that's how we form like this interdisciplinary team. And with these skills, I think we can already do a lot. And the rest, like more the data science aspect, is coming from the client, but we can understand it and discuss with them. So it's an really interdisciplinary discipline. Everyone has to be interested in a lot of stuff, like be it technology, design, content, data. So you need kind of like nerdy people to work in this field.